Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. We leave executive session. Agenda changes. I don't believe we have any. We have a presentation tonight by Mr. Marquesi.
I'm going to use the wall right behind you in white. I know most of you. If you don't know me, my name is Mark Vesci. I'm an English teacher at high school here. And I'm going to briefly discuss with you the Dignity for All Students Act, otherwise known as DASA. I think wired and board in time, and I know that we have a commitment at 7, so I'm going to keep this brief. First, I'm going to discuss. I'm going to be giving you an overview of what DASA is and why the state has decided to enact it. I think this is. Yeah, we might need some more.
Take a moment.
Well, actually, no, it's getting.
Possible,
Is that okay?
just waiting.
Yeah, okay, fine. And as I talk about this, if anybody wants to stop me, don't hesitate to do that. But it's important to note that as I begin, that bullying, as we may have experienced it when we were students, it's a lot different today. A lot of it has to do with electronic communication. And so the statistics you're going to see here are going to relate to the way young people predominantly communicate today. Texting, Facebook, that sort of thing. And that's not to say that bullying doesn't still happen on the bus or in the cafeteria. And that's not to say that it doesn't start at a young age. It can go all the way up to high school and higher. But predominantly, it happens electronically. So let's begin. That statistic, you can read it. It said 69% of teens own their own computer or smartphone device. And of those teens, 80% are active on one or more social media sites. And these numbers, by the way, are from a survey that I conducted last spring and over the summer of about 150 students. However, I think that might even be higher when you think about how much internet activity there is going on. Face-to-face communication among teens is becoming unnecessary. Right? People can be sitting next to each other and make text. The average teen sends, and this is again from my numbers, 420 texts each week. That equals 60 texts per day, 1 text every 12 minutes for 12 hours straight. Girls aged 14 to 17 send an average of 100 texts per day. However, being an English teacher or being a teacher in high school, I bet that's a lot more for certain people. 81% of youth say bullying online is easier to get away with than bullying in person. And I think that makes sense. And I would compare that to, say, aggressive driving. I might be more inclined to drive aggressively if somebody has cut me off or something. Because I'm behind the steering wheel, I'm behind my windshield. However, if somebody cut me off in line at the movies, I wouldn't be as inclined to confront them. So I think it's the same way. It's much easier to type something and then click enter rather than to walk up to a person and say the same thing to his or her face. This one, from 1985, pretty much from the advent of the internet to now, or to 2007, the last year for which I could find numbers, as internet and technology consumption has grown, so has the teen suicide rates, 32% in girls aged 15 to 19, and 76% in girls aged 10 to 14. And in addition to suicide, there's a whole other host of ways that this bullying can manifest itself. Another way that this happens in school is teens self-cutting. It's a form of self-mutilation. And then the suicide piece is sort of where the state has decided that it needs to it needed to enact this legislation. 9% of teens who witness online bullying say they ignore it. And to witness online bullying would be to say be on Facebook. And somebody posts a comment about somebody, and that gets sent out to however many people, and most people read it, laugh about it maybe, or forward it, or not, but most people don't say anything about it, and 2 in 5 victims will tell their parents. As a side note, being a classroom teacher, a lot of the things that I hear are often about girls and often about their supposed sexual activity, right? This girl is like this, or this girl is like that, and that could really eat somebody on the side, I'm sure. 3 million kids are absent from school each month because they fear bullies. Bullied kids are twice as likely to commit suicide as non-bullied kids. Okay, so here's the legislation. DASA, or Dignity for All Students Act, was signed into law by David Paterson in 2010, and it is intended to provide students a school environment that is safe, supportive, and free from discrimination, taunting, and harassment on school property, on a school bus, or at a school function. And this went into effect July 1st of this year. The intent of DASA is to ensure that elementary and secondary school students have the right to attend school in an environment that is free of discrimination, harassment, and bullying. And this is why, I say at the beginning of every school year, and it's written on my syllabus that goes home to parents, that my classroom needs to be a place where students feel free to come in and express themselves. If they can't do that, then there's no way that they're going to be able to feel that they're going to be open enough to learn and to get what they need to get. And this has a serious connection to our APPR and all of these state mandates that we have about test scores, because all of these outside factors are affecting kids emotionally, and that's going to affect how they do in school, obviously. So why was DASA enacted? Pretty much why just the statistics I just showed you. Once again, students have a right to attend school in a safe and supportive environment, and they shouldn't fear being abused verbally or physically or virtually. So what does DASA prohibit? Hostile behavior, aggressive conduct, threats, intimidation, or abuse that substantially interferes with another student's educational performance. Douglas and I had a great discussion before the meeting began. The way the legislature is written now, or the way that the law is written now, if on a Sunday night a kid is bullied at home, via text message or over the computer, and that affects his or her performance at school the next day, I think the school at this point is legally bound or legally responsible for that, right? So how does this relate to the classroom? DASA creates a framework for promoting a more positive school climate through professional development and classroom curriculum. And who's the person? Amanda Verba, who I think held a training today at Rosie's for assistant principals and the dean, Mark Hardesty from Hollywood, to discuss this, how the school is going to present this and teach this. So what is required of us? DASA amends state education law to require that curriculum disabilities, citizenship, and character education specifically includes awareness and sensitivity to discrimination or harassment and civility in relations of people, regardless of what they look like, their race, sexuality, ethnicity, et cetera, et cetera. And these are things that, as educators we've been doing for a long time. But now the state is weighing in, and they're going to make sure that, at least they're saying they're going to make sure that we're going to do this. So what is the responsibility of the school districts? And this, in italics, is straight from the document. The superintendent and the district administration will incorporate training to support this program in new teacher orientation and the annual professional development plan as needed. And at least one staff member at every school must be thoroughly trained in human relations in these areas. Now, so I think on October in our October superintendent's meeting, faculty meeting, Amanda Verba's coming and she'll be discussing it with us. So I don't know if that means that everybody in our school will be thoroughly trained or, okay, good, so not one everyone. So finally, and that's what I just said, our first steps, we're going to be in October having a faculty meeting on this, and we'll allow these lessons on civility to be incorporated into our events. Okay, so these are my resources, and I was going to email this to each of you, but I wanted to just tell you I was going to email it to you, and I can do that this evening once I get home. If not for the PowerPoint, at least these resources, there's some good documents that you can get information from if you're interested. Is there any questions? Or I know you know some stuff too. Yes, Mr. White.
I do. While I respect and appreciate that this is a law, they also made it so we or members of the school are not invading privacy when they ask the same person's phone. The origin of, in order to, for lack of other words, prove a case, if a child comes to you and says Sunday night, I received a text message invading the report that I'm going to show you or not, but how did they put something in place?
One of the things that we're doing as an action step is getting ready to have a very clear process for how we address complaints that are of this nature. Now, what I'll piggyback on Mark's just a little bit by saying, this really doesn't change what we do. We've already had these kinds of things in our curriculum. We've already had codes, our code of conduct has already dealt with this, our discipline, we already addressed these behaviors. But what we're doing is we're adding some layers in terms of the formality of our investigative process, just to make sure that we're in compliance with the law. This green packet that I have is actually something that Amanda Verba gave. It's from another school district, but it's something that we're looking to replicate. And it's basically the first page is a flow chart that illustrates exactly the process that we go through, so that there isn't a, well, you didn't follow up on this. Once the complaint's been filed, we're going to follow this to the letter and make sure that we're in compliance. There's also, within this packet, there's actually a report form for students to use. There's an anonymous reporting form if a parent wanted to call and not leave their name, and it specifically asks for the necessary details that we would need in order to fully investigate the situation. There's an action step, there's follow-up, and what we've talked about is using, again, existing structures. We have our student support team at the high school, and I know that each of the buildings has a support team, and that will become the building task force on addressing this. So I think that we're really in a good place in terms of how we're going to meet the demands of the law. Plus, we have Amanda Verba and her team who signed on to the service that they're offering to BOCES to make sure that they're checking and double checking everything that we're doing to make sure that we're in compliance in terms of how our code of conduct is written and our responses to these kinds of things.
From what I've seen, our code of conduct is very thorough, very successful. I guess as long as we make sure it aligns.
Are we adding anything to our code of conduct to address this, altering it in any way?
I don't want to say adding anything. We might tweak some of the language just a little bit to make sure that we're in compliance. But I mean, we already have a very thorough statement on harassment.
Right.
And that's really what this gets into.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking is that if we do so, we must have a public hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's something that's on this is the to-do list. And we've already got 1 through 4, and we're working, so once we have all of these things in place, we'll probably put together it will be a board meeting.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be an extra meeting. I think we discussed that it would be a forum, but you announce it as a public forum to review our set policy.
Right.
So
As close to the time as that.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because there have been some issues with that,
oh
with public hearings.
and not having them. Yeah. Yep. Let's see. Number 8 on the to-do list. Must have a public hearing to discuss the code of conduct. So we're there.
Is there a specific definition of what constitutes bullying or harassment?
In the
I
law,
think that would be up to an individual's perception.
I mean, it does.
It's written down as code of
mean,
conduct.
if you make somebody fun of somebody's weight, or if you make fun of somebody's appearance, if you say somebody's ears are too big, that could be considered, which could open up a huge, the legality piece is
Yeah, but specifically, I was thinking of
very
is,
severe.
my perception, being spoken to, by the way, I've heard coaches speak to some children. I personally would find that to be intimidating.
Right, and this is
But it could be
both.
that I need to be educated to say, okay, this is not, in other words, I'm being too sensitive about that.
Well, and that's a good note. I'm sorry. This is how teens talk to each other and how teachers and adults address students too. It's not how students address teachers or adults, by the way, but it is how adults address. So it is both. So yeah, the coaching comment is a good comment because I've heard the same thing. Yeah.
I'm going to pass this around. This is just a little card that Amanda had shared with us. It's something that they're using as a quick reference. It just talks about the highlights of what the act says, and then on the back, some helpful reminders. And just example, don't confuse conflict and bullying. This doesn't address when two kids are both jawing at each other. This is specifically when you have one person who's targeting someone and making them a victim. Conflict is a separate issue, and that still falls under Bader. But we address all of those issues. This is just really targeting a specific type of behavior.
And the issue of repetition
Right.
of the behavior is somewhat critical in the definition.
So
So it's
take a look at this.
Because you can get into the same problem you have with sexual harassment.
Right.
And that's defined only as the person who perceives it as being that way.
Right.
Ooh.
So if somebody's feeling, if a student is made to feel uncomfortable because of something that's being said or done by another person, then we have an obligation to investigate that.
We had that Sandstorm thing a number of years ago, when I either was just coming on or when I came on the board. It was this, I think that was sort of well, at least some of that action stuff we did as a community. And one of the survey things that was done right when I was sort of paying attention to things, said about 30% of the kids felt they were bullied by teachers. And that number surprised me. And this is where I don't say what you're saying. I mean, I think sometimes bullying can be perceived by kids different ways. Like, if a teacher's getting on a kid about, not doing the work, or, don't be lazy, or, gosh, I know you can do, but I mean, maybe you're trying to be encouraging, they're perceiving it as bullying. I'm wondering what the mechanism is if the student, and a parent's going to get involved in this too. This is where I think a parent's more likely to get involved if a teacher is perceived as doing it than a kid. I think kids are like, they'll figure it out in some ways, although we don't think that's the case in many ways now. But the teacher thing is sort of dicey for me. Is this any different? Does this get implemented? Because I think the assumption is this is peer review.
It's
When I hear this,
It really is.
well, I know if we think it's both,
Presentation is mostly here.
that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah.
And what I've read since peer review, not adult, and I don't mean even teacher, I mean, listen, kids get bullied on the bus by a bus driver. Kids get bullied at home by an aunt and uncle or a parent. And it's not that this sort of bullying thing is just peer-to-peer. Part of what the discussion is beyond the peer-to-peer.
Part of our implementation process with this, one of the things that we have to do is to appoint a dignity coordinator for the building. And what we've talked about, and I haven't talked with the whole administrative team yet because not everybody was available at the same meeting, but one of the things that we were really talking about was that our mental health staff really needs to take the lead and possibly could be our data coordinator or coordinators, because really that's the intervention. A lot of it is helping students first know how to respond to a difficult situation, knowing how to
Well, if they feel that way, just know that you both
and knowing that there's a safe person they can talk to without it having to be going to the principal, going to the dean, because there's a certain connotation going to us, whereas a student can just go and say, hey, I need help with this difficult situation, and then you have somebody who can interpret and say, okay, this sounds like something that needs to be
So
addressed.
is that then psychologists? Is it sort of like, sexual harassment or something like that, where if the kid goes to them are they then bound to report that? Or can they try to work it out with the kid without going through all the reporting mechanisms that follow this?
What they have to do is decide if it's something that needs to be reported. So they can, like, any student can go and talk to a counselor anytime. And if there's a situation that it feels like, okay, this may be a bullying situation, it's the counselor's responsibility to help them make a decision as to whether or not they need to file a report.
So the student has to do it. The counselor is not bound to do it, being told maybe the kid is being bullied.
No, but they can. They can. I mean, you have a responsibility to do something about it to help prevent. I'm just saying.
I'm worried
There's
there's
like
normalize this thing to death, and the kids are gonna get scared to even go.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, you know, it's gonna be a big thing if I just go and talk to them about it.
There's a balancing act because obviously we do have a responsibility to look out for the safety of our kids. And if there's an unsafe situation,
Which last time I checked, you're trying to do that anyway.
right, exactly. And if a student is feeling like they can't take action and because they're afraid of retribution or something like that, that's where it's good that it's coming, they're working with the mental health staff because they can coach the student into doing the right thing. I don't want the victim of a situation. It's like, that victims of rape aren't forced to file charges. It's the victim, it's their decision, it's their discretion as to what they want to have happen. However, if a staff member, if Mark is walking down the hall and he observes a bullying situation, he is mandated by this law to report it to the.
If he observes it directly, not a teacher.
Right, if the teacher observes it, and if they are told about it. They could be told indirectly about it, and if they don't do something about it, it's like the Penn State law.
Exactly, there's a number of
If you know about it and you don't do something about it, you're in trouble, even if it's secondhand.
removed for that. I think another feature, intention of the act is that they would very much like to see students, when they observe bullying, not necessarily becoming involved in the situation, but reporting it to someone
Yes,
who
over
is
the storm,
responsible.
because it's not in the storm, and then
Yeah.
he or she would give it to the dean or
Correct.
principal.
Yep.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you for all your work.
Can I take a 2-minute pause? My music department needs that piano for this evening's
Oh,
program.
dear.
Could we shift the
Which way?
table for 1 minute and I can shove that piano out?
Okay, move right along. Consent agenda, 6A through. Well, all the appointments.
Easy.
Looking for a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Correspondence, we have a thank you letter from the Together Soccer Club and a letter from the New York State Department of Transportation regarding Sunday inspections. And I know you received the package this evening. And if you get a chance, please read both correspondences. And I might add that the inspection report for our transportation department is very good light. Just commend everyone who works on it. Okay. Administrators report? No brevity is
Ready
focused.
for school. Ready for school.
Interviewing middle school principal position.
To add on to that, is the board hopefully going to come for opening day, much like we did last year. For the
Is that
Tuesday.
Tuesday after Labor Day?
Tuesday.
Tuesday before. Yep.
8 o'clock.
Elementary.
And piggybacking on that, are any of the board member services asked for during open day to guide children to the classrooms?
You can always use help on the first day of school getting the kindergartners to their rooms
Yes.
from the buses. So if you have time, come to the office at about 7:45 and we report to the bus loop. Maybe you better come a little bit before that.
And that's Wednesday.
That's Wednesday. The buses will roll in at 7:45, so just be there about 7:30. Come to the office and we'll walk out and take the kindergartners from their buses to their classrooms.
Spring clearance?
Right.
That's spring clearance.
Thank you. Open forum, anyone? New business, and I'm gonna try to move through this as quickly as possible. 10A, approval to increase the business and district education positions by 0.4.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Opposed, discussion?
Does that put her back into a full-time position then? Hallelujah. Thank you.
That's Karen,
That's wonderful. Thank you.
which is the,
Okay, we all approved that. Reinstatement of instructional staff, Karen Murray, once again. Look for a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? C, approval to increase the TA position by 1 full time.
So moved.
Second,
second,
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? D, approval to increase administrative assistant position by 1 full time.
So moved.
Second,
second. What was that about?
discussion.
Yeah, what was that about?
Yeah, this is the, we have a 10-month, what we have?
We had a 10
10-month plus a few days position in the central office. And we really need a full year, really is to get some help back for Kimberly.
So is that a separate new person?
There is a keyboard specialist position. that
Which is on page 7.
that we will abolish. We haven't done it yet this evening, but it's coming. And so the senior person, will no longer have access to that position. And there's a change of title in the district office to administrative assistant. So
Just
that,
moving people around.
yes.
Yeah, but changing the responsibilities a little bit in the central office to provide us with what we need.
We're not.
Basically, no.
Slightly more.
Because you want to be.
But right now, this summer, we had 10 months plus a few days. It just didn't really work out. As far as we need help all summer long. Steady, confidential administrative assistant.
Anyone else? All in favor? Opposed? E, entry level salary. So moved. Administrative assistant, 1350, the motion.
Second.
Discussion? Say it, all in favor? Opposed? F, acceptance of resignations as presented.
So moved.
A second,
Second.
discussion? All in favor? Opposed? G is acceptance of resignation as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? H, appointment of instructional staff as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion?
John, how'd you get an English teacher so far?
It's good. No, we interviewed 3 people who had connections to the district. We posted the day that I got Lorian's notice that she was planning to resign. I posted it. We had the posting up for 2 weeks. We had a couple of folks that we reached out to and encouraged them to apply. people that have done long-term sub positions for us before, and the person that we're appointing is actually somebody who's been a long-term substitute for Lori, and she's taught all of the same courses that she'll be picking up. And the entire English department who was on that made up the interview committee was just thrilled to have her back. So we're very fortunate.
Was that just right?
Yep, we filled that. That was last meeting. It'll be the social studies teacher that we picked up is a 10-year veteran teacher from New York City, taught at George Washington School. So coming to terms where will be a change of we'll rock his world a bit in a good way. So,
You might rock ours too, though.
yeah. We're very excited to have
It's
him.
very sharp.
Yeah.
So is this English teacher, and her specialty is writing.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
Some very good acquisitions.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Appointments and support staff as presented. Looking for a second? Discussion?
Well, I think this problem with this one person here, we look at
Nice.
background.
This nepotism.
Take fingerprint thing, it's all a mess now.
Was she clear?
Barely. It says barely written right there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? J, adoption of the board goals as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Thank you.
discussion?
Okay, we did add some language to talk about, particularly around, the bottom of the page, literacy shifts, staircasing complexity. We added some text, but we tried to explain it a little bit, although once you start into it, you can, there's whole PowerPoints on each one of these, so it's a slippery slope once you try to explain very far, but our teachers know what they are, and I just think this gives a little more wording, so it helps.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we'll discuss this in open meeting also. Okay, approval of additional summer curriculum projects.
So moved.
For second? Discussion? What projects?
So they're gonna get this done in a week.
Well, actually, we just needed, it was to build our RTI plan for the district. So we just needed to add 25 more hours just to cover everyone who already worked on that. So the work has been done, we just needed to pay them. So we just wanted to just be very, even though we had people who didn't do summer curriculum projects, so we had the hours in there, I just wanted you to know that we needed extra hours on this particular project.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Aye, pay cash funds, school lunch program 200, and money directed 400.
So moved.
Discussion?
Just out of curiosity, what some of this for these ones?
Cash register till, just they need some
Seed
seed money to start
okay,
like ticket
so-
sales and lunch, for the lunch fund.
All in favor? Opposed? Appointment of the CPSE chair, Jill McLaughlin.
So moved.
Discussion?
Is she a parent? Is that a
Good counsel.
Jill McLaughlin will be covering some of the responsibilities for CPSE for me. She will be helping to chair some of the meetings so that I have less time covering those to do other things. So she is the one who's going to help support us.
It's helpful that she's in the elementary school so that we can see the kids who are coming. So when they're coming into kindergarten, we have, a staff member who knows all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And acceptance of donation from TCSD Foundation of $600 to the elementary school library.
So moved.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Please, thank you, Jim. O, acceptance of donation from Miller Meyer LLP of 7 flat panel monitors and 4 network switches to the Chilliwack Tech Department.
So moved.
Move for a second.
Thank you.
These surplus from the law firm? That's a law firm.
Ask this guy.
It's surplus from
They're replacing equipment. The equipment we took in was about 2 to 3 years old, with a value of $3,000 to $5,000.
Boy, the legal business is pretty good, huh?
We don't have to prepare it or create.
Nope, it's all in working order.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Once again, we need some time to work. Abolishment of staff proposition P as presented.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now we're on the Q, abolishment of teacher position as presented, music K-12, one full-time.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? R, acknowledgement of the proposed recommended draft of the work scope, that is, part of the capital project.
So moved.
Move for second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Old business, try to follow me on this. If you look in your packet, there'll be a village ground superintendent. Please look at that. This is part of the ad that we didn't get in there in time. So first, under 9A1, we need to adopt this as presented. The acceptance of the revised civil service job description for village ground superintendent, Mike Babcock. Look for a motion.
So moved.
It's on the back of the capital project.
Oh, okay.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
The discussion, I think it's highlighted.
Here, that's down.
This kind of brings us into compliance with civil service.
Did we, tweak this to fit this job?
This is what the civil service recommended that we have in there to be able to do that position. Where we had concerns of going to other board meetings, and
Right.
they said this had to be done.
Something different.
The highlighted area was added. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now, 9A1 or 2 would be the approval of the stipend as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? B, with the motion of the central activity treasurer
So
as
moved.
presented.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? C, looking for central activity treasurer to carry on after that part, looking for a motion. Second? With discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 12, policy, the second reading of adoption of board policies. Policy number 3310, public access to records, and policy 1510, regular board meetings and rules for parliamentary procedures. Look for a motion. Look for a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Board one?
You gotta take this to kill.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Sorry to be so brief,